the musical Hamilton, I think, did so much for people being able to see the framers, the founding fathers, in just a completely different way of a way of looking at them as being flawed people, but at the same time being able to see them as humans and not marble statues. As strange as the idea of Alexander Hamilton dancing around and doing hip hop, my daughter has become, she's 10, she started to become an American history buff because of that musical.
Who would have thought that you would have heard Thomas Jefferson having in a rap battle and actually learn things from it, right? Yes. I totally agree with you.
Walt Disney was smart to, I mean, I hate that we had the global historic pandemic, but if it got the Hamilton into everybody's living room, it might have been worth it.
It did. And I wrote 3 palaces at Yalta during the lockdown.
My pastor at church has called this the plandemic in some ways. Not to say that God is raining down fury upon us, but if you are open, you can find avenues and that silver lining. And I ended up writing my latest piece called Haunted. And it's about the musings that came to my mind in the wake of the Mother Emanuel shooting. Dylan Storm Roof, that troubled young man who killed 9 people in that church called Mother Emanuel, or Emanuel
Yes.
African Methodist Episcopal Church there in Charleston, South Carolina, on June 17th, 2015. And how I had to try to find a way to explain to 2 little black boys who were 7 and 4 at the time what hatred is and what racism is. And so this show Haunted talks about how our history, our proclivities, our notions of what whiteness and blackness and race and right and wrong, how those things have kind of, they've haunted us over the years. And we respond to them, we react to them. And instead of responding, actually, we often react. We have these knee-jerk and gut reactions that can sometimes be violent and sometimes be problematic. And so Haunted is another one-man show that goes into this notion of what it is to love your country, love yourself, and love others, and acknowledge the fact that it's all troubled. What I'm learning is that as we continue to grapple with these stories and deal with our own traumas that we have not yet confronted, we find joy. We can find some comedy. We can find some hope in this time where I've really been socially distanced and I've been isolated and only dealing with people virtually for the most part. I found time to sit down and muse and consider, well, what do I think about this? And not the talking points, not the politicians or the pundits that I normally listen to, not the news channels, but what do I think? And it's allowed me to metabolize
Yes.
historical trauma, to metabolize my own hopes and dreams and vulnerabilities and my deep concerns about where we are now in terms of the division in this country, the political, in some cases, the racial division, the deep sorrow that I feel about the fact that I love police officers. My grandfather was a police officer. My father was a military police officer. I was in the Air Force. I very much value and honor authority. And I'm also troubled with some of the lack of accountability that I see amongst our peace officers and police officers. And I'm troubled with the fact that the solution's not so easily accessible to us.
I'm afraid we sometimes, at least in the past few years, have been led to believe that we're a lot worse than we really are. Mm-hmm. And that we're not being told to aim higher than what we have been. And that's just, I think that has destroyed civility, an inability to even listen. And I don't know if the pandemic had a good effect or a bad effect on that, but I think overstimulation has caused some of that problem, and maybe some people were encouraged to turn off and tune into a different source of inspiration or whatever. And I'm not sure what I'm trying to get at here, but I think we've been brought down to a lower common denominator than we need to have been brought down to. And I don't know how to raise that. And if the arts have some way of doing that, then let them do it.
We're using this time to dig deeper, to challenge ourselves, and to really cut out the distractions and find the destinations, And I hope more people will do this. But if they don't, that's kind of part of what we're called to do. All those late nights, all those sleepless hours, trying to get the line right, get the moment right, dig deeper in research. We are the ones doing we're what Plato calls those the philosopher kings, right? Not that we're better than anyone, but we are committed to do the work, to dig, so that we can come out of that cave and produce to society the nuance, the possibility, the full, all of me.
Your daughter, what would you have her be learning in the classroom?
I would have her learn a foreign language.
Okay.
Whatever she was inclined to. If she wants it to be Spanish or French or a less traditional language like, Mandarin. I say traditional. I mean, it's spoken by millions and millions of people, but it's not taught that often in schools. A language that would open up a part of the world to her, not only just culturally, but also just communicating with people day to day and reading other people's literature and that kind of thing. That would be one thing. Also, I don't know how you could do it. If I could wave my hand and get rid of something, I'd get rid of fear, because it just seems to be the most divisive force at work right now. And it permeates everything. It's not only fear in the government, in culture, it's fear in schools. It's like if you read something and somebody says, well, that's not true. All right, if it's not true, you don't have to believe it, but you don't have to tell other people they can't believe it. And you don't have to try to make it disappear. I think that's partly what's behind cancel culture. We can't grapple with something, so we just have to dig a hole and bury it in the ground. If we could get rid of this fear we've been developing and cultivating, and that has been encouraged nationwide by all political parties, then I think we would go a long way toward acceptance and toleration, the kind of toleration that's not just, oh yeah, I'll fall for anything, but just, this country is, everybody said it's an experiment. Lincoln said the United States was the last best hope of mankind. I would hate to think that, but if it can be done anywhere, it could be done here. I think that is the people that we are, and that's the people that that's being denied now.
It's so refreshing to hear a fellow artist from a different generation, ostensibly from a different racial background, say so much of what I've been trying to tell people over here as well. I think about one of my favorite quotes from Yoda, the famous philosopher Yoda,
yes.
fictional philosopher. Fear is the path to the dark side. With
Yes.
fear comes hatred, anger. From anger comes hatred, and hatred leads to suffering. Getting our kids, our young people, our students to confront fear and to refuse to retreat. That's the word I was looking for earlier. We retreat to our respective silos, our safe places. We want to be around people who look like, live like, and love like us, and that keeps us predictable and simple, and we don't have to confront the fear. Getting kids to try new things like learning new languages, having conversations with folks who do not speak like, look like, live like, or love like them, just to have a deeper understanding. You don't have to agree with everything. You don't have to like it, but just to get an idea of the humanity of the other is so very important. So for me, I would say, in whatever you teach people in schools, there are three elements that I want to make sure that we're cognizant of. Number one, I think being politically correct should not be a goal. Politically correct keeps people safe. I don't think safety has ever, especially as Americans, safety has gotten us nowhere. It's courage that gets us someplace. It's pressing into the breach, right? With sometimes reckless abandon to find out what's going to happen. The pioneering spirit, right? So being politically correct should not be the goal. We should not be politically correct, but we should also not be so focused on popular cancellation when we hear things we don't like, and burying them, as Bruce said, that we lose sight of what we can learn from, even people with whom we disagree, or even issues or truths or facts that we don't like, right? So let's not be so politically correct that we're super careful about everything, but let's not be so righteous, self-righteous, that we cancel everyone who disagrees with us. So let's be personally connected. That to me looks like, in my case, as a more conservative Christian American, asking my students what their pronouns are. I have a few people who are transgender in my life, and I love them. I don't fully understand it. I'm still working through spiritually, mentally, cognitive, all those things, but I know they're humans and I love them. And so I ask and I share my pronouns, because I think that is important, to be personally connected with the people with whom I am sharing space. We talk about this hateful term, blood and soil, and I want to reframe that. I want to say, let's stand on the same soil together, and let's acknowledge the fact that we have the same forefathers and foremothers, even if they aren't biologically connected to us. we all share this same heritage, from Sacagawea to Harriet Tubman to George Washington. They're all ours. We can own, when I say own, not in the sense of property, but we can own in terms of we can partake in the multivariant, diverse heritage that has been given to us by virtue of the fact that we were born in, I'm going to say it, the greatest nation ever. As a point of hope, both of my boys, Sterling, who is now 13, and Langston, who is 7, they're in Chinese immersion programs in public school here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. They've been learning Mandarin since they were in kindergarten. They're both fluent, and it's pretty cool to see.